Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's Levy Lecture. My name is Wendi Kromash. It's my pleasure to welcome you here. We are going to have a fascinating conversation with Tim Rhoze, who is the theater director of Fleetwood-Jourdain, the adult theater workshop, and he's got a ton of experience. So it should be a really fun afternoon, just learning about his life and what's inspired him. Thanks to the Levy Senior Center Foundation for supporting the lecture series. And this month also, the Evanston Roundtable is having its membership drive. It's a free electronic publication that specializes in everything that's going on in Evanston. Most of you live in Evanston. If you're not a subscriber, please sign up. It's a wonderful local paper, and local news has never been more important than now. Okay, Tim, welcome to the Levy Lecture series. It's my pleasure to introduce you to our audience, and thank you for sharing family photos and photos of your professional experiences. So let's get right into it. And I will be, we'll go through some of the photos and you can talk to us about your inspirations and anything else that's relevant, professionally. Also, I want to acknowledge that we've been having some Zoom issues. We've been working on this for a while and they haven't been resolved. So I know the screen doesn't look exactly the way we both want it, but we are going to plow ahead anyway. Okay.
All right. Well, first of all, thank you, Wendi, for inviting me to be a part of the lecture series. And as you just told your viewing audience, I am the artistic director.
Oh, excuse me.
That's okay. Of the Fleetwood-Jourdain Theatre. And I have been so for the last 12 years. Fleetwood-Jourdain Theatre was founded by Gloria Bon Clooney, who I believe was a part of your lecture series last year. And she started this wonderful theater under the name of the Foster Community Theater in the 5th Ward in 1979. And so there have been several other artistic directors prior to me. And so I stand on their shoulders as this theater continues to produce plays and community events and intergenerational programming for the community of Evanston.
Great, perfect. And thank you for correcting me about your title. So, so the first slide we're going to look at is, hang on 1 second. What did I do before? All right, be patient. Okay, so this beautiful picture is of your parents, Cynthia Marie and Charles. I don't know how they were when they married. I know you have a lot of, you spent a lot of time in Detroit. I don't know if your whole family's from Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you pick it up?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you this. Yeah, no, I can absolutely pick it up from there. So I was born and raised in Detroit. I was educated in the city of Detroit, I'm proud to say. My parents, mother's maiden name was Cynthia Marie McDonald. And my father's name, his full name was Charles Rudolph Roseborough. My mother was born and was raised in Romeo, Michigan, which is a very small town, about, I don't know how many miles, about 40 minutes outside of the city of Detroit. My father was actually born in Southwest Detroit, location of Southwest Detroit. Went to high school there and lived his entire life in Detroit. As the story goes, he met my mom at a dance at the YWCA. My mom had moved into the city of Detroit and was living, people used to do that, right? Go to the YWCA, and she got herself a room, and there was a dance. And as they say, the rest is history. But as you can just see the smile on his face, like, I scored. I got I'm marrying up.
Absolutely. And as you will see in the next couple of photos, this beautiful couple aged gracefully and were still as attractive.
Yeah, well, that's not them, but that's my brother.
That's true. This is your younger brother. You are
my brother, right, who is on, I don't know, I guess the left screen side. You can probably see me. I got the big ears. They're kind of sticking out. They still do. But that was my brother, Charles Jr. We lost him at the age of 6.
Oh, no. What?
Oh, yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, he was chased out into the street by a dog.
Oh.
And so then, well, it's a story that people who know me know about. It's one that says that at the age of 4, we were in the care of a babysitter, right? My parents were off shopping. And my brother and I, you would play out in the street, you run around in everybody's homes and backyards. And he went around the corner, and his friends ran back to tell me that my brother had been hit by a car. So we kind of, zigzagged our way through the backyards of the neighborhood, and I saw my brother. I can remember seeing him laying on the street. The other memory that I have from that was in the alleyway. There was a cop car. Back then, they had the big lights on top. At any rate, there was the back door was open, and there was a man who was sitting in the back. But I have memories of Charles Jr. Every now and then something would pop into mind about him. Yeah.
So you were 4 and he was 6 when he.
Right, when he passed away. Yeah. And so obviously, that was that's something that took a major toll on my parents.
Oh my God, of course.
And something that I think they struggled with their entire lives. So you can imagine, right, or maybe not, but the idea that there were no cell phones, there was no, so you come home from your grocery shopping trip, to find out that you lost your firstborn.
How tragic.
Yeah, so that that moment obviously would set the tone for how things were going to unfold in my life with my parents. My parents were very protective of me. All right. When we moved, I was born in what was the Jefferson Projects, which was off of the Lodge Expressway in Detroit. And then so my father worked at the post office. My mother was working, I think at the time, she was actually an elevator operator at the Hudson Department Store, which was part of the Marshall Fields family, the Dayton Hudson Corporation. And so they had put their money together, and they moved to the west side of Detroit from where we were living previously, off of Rochester and Dexter, and bought a nice home. It had a piano in it, fireplace, garage, all those things. And so that growing up in that neighborhood, which was an all Jewish neighborhood at the time that we moved in, right, began to shape while all the other kids were playing in the streets and riding their bikes in the streets. I was not allowed to play in the streets for their fear, their anxiety. That something tragic would happen to me. But moving past that, I really began to see in my parents just a deep commitment to family. And they watched over me. And then my sister came a few years later, my sister Charlene. You'll see a picture of her with my mother coming up. They really did their best to provide for her and I. And I'm very grateful for it. I don't think that I ever showed adequately how much I appreciated them. I was a pretty terrible kid. I hope I've improved as an adult. But, as that child, my parents really had their hands full. My father worked midnights at the post office. My mother worked days. And I would say my father probably visited the school on an average of twice a week, because I was always put into detention. I was always in the principal's office, right? And as we begin to talk about what that growing up was like and why I was like that, and I explained, we had this conversation, and some of the people that are watching that are part of the Primetime Players in the North Shore network have heard me talk about, is that I grew up with a struggle of reading and comprehending. And because of that, go ahead.
So let's keep going. So when your brother had passed away, was Charlene born?
Charlene was not born at the time that he passed away. No.
Okay.
She came, as I mentioned, yes, she came a few years later. I had mentioned that. Mm-hmm.
Her name obviously incorporates his name.
They were all C's, I was a T. Cynthia, Charles, and Charlene, and Charles Jr. So if that bespeaks to anything, it meant that I was going to be the odd one. And I think that I succeeded.
Here is Tim with his dad, who he told me earlier died with a full head of hair and a beard. And then his mom with Charlene.
Would you just go back for a second, please? Just go back. Do that for me. So this man, Charles Rudolph Roseborough, was a hell of a dude. I mean, like, seriously, like, my father had his own gospel radio show. He was a DJ that, WMUZ. I remember that. And I remember one distinct moment on September 25th of some year. My father and my mother and I would always, my sister would always listen to him on the radio. And the 25th of September is my birthday. And he gave me what we would call now a shout out on the radio for my birthday. He was also an opera singer. He worked with the Michigan Opera Theater, and he studied under a phenomenal woman. Her name was Celeste Cole in Detroit. And he would take me with him to his practices and his rehearsals as he was doing opera. So I would be hearing that music in the house all the time. He was an actor. He's the one who introduced me into theater. He would work periodically at the Detroit Repertory Theater on Woodrow Wilson in Detroit. They've been around forever. Right. But he would perform there, work the midnight shift at the post office, come home, try to get some sleep, come to the school, get me, come back home, and then start the cycle all over again. But I just wanted to pay particular attention to his journey and what kind of man that he was, and the example that he set for me in terms of following your dream. And he certainly supported me as I became involved in the performing arts. And if you want to go to the next screen, which is my mom and my sister. My mom, as I mentioned, I remember my earliest memory of my mother working, she was this elevator operator in the Hudson department store on Woodward Avenue in Detroit. And I remember that, and this is when you could be, I don't know, 6, 7 years old and get on the bus by yourself. Like, you could really do that, at a time. And she would have me come down on her lunch hour. And I would come down and she would take me to lunch at Saunders or Elias Brothers Big Boys or Woolworths. We would actually eat at Woolworths. But she was also an amazing person. You can see the love and caring in her eyes, both of them, my sister and her. But she was the disciplinarian. My father was the lenient one, right? Good cop, bad cop, right? Definitely bad cop, right? There was not much that she would let me get away with. As a matter of fact, I became a very agile and quick runner because my mother would grab the belt and chase me all over the house. And so when people from the neighborhood would tell her that I was playing in the street. And I know I wasn't supposed to be playing in the street. When I got home from school, there was hell to be paid. And every word of profanity that I learned from this woman here. But she was the sweetest, kindest person. And the thing about my father and my mother, she ended up working at the Kmart Corporation, the headquarters, which or one of the whatever in Sterling Heights, Michigan. That's where she retired from. They loved bowling together. But I can tell you this about what I learned about life and love. I learned through them. They were together from time. They were never separated. I never heard a word about divorce, nothing like that. About 12 years ago, my father died in her arms. And he hospiced at home. And true story, my sister Charlene, you see her there, myself, and my daughter, Kara, who you'll meet later, we were putting things in the jacket that he was going to be buried in. So a little note. I think we put a pick comb for all that hair he has, right? He used the Afro sheen. So we had a little jar of Afro sheen we were going to put in the casket. We were doing the whole Egyptian thing for real, right? And asked my mother, said, do you want to put something into, this little box that we're going to send with Dad? And she said, no, I'm good. We said our goodbyes. And she was just as easy about it. And that transition for everyone was tragic, obviously. But I think that she was at peace more so than anyone else about it. Yeah.
How old were they when they married?
Oh, Jesus Christ. See, now you're going to start asking me questions I don't have answers for. I think my mother must have been about 22 or 23. And so that meant my father would have been 24, 25. And they were young. Yeah, they were young. He was in the Air Force. She was working around in Detroit doing various jobs and things. He was doing various jobs when he was home. He was stationed down in Texas for a little bit, but he was when he was out at Selfridge Air Force Base, which is like outside of Detroit, maybe by like an hour or two, something like that.
Okay. Well, they were obviously very loving, and you were raised in a loving household.
Loving and interesting household, yes.
Yes. Is Charlene still around? Is she?
She's still on the planet. Is she still alive? Yeah, she's still alive.
And what does she do?
My sister works in marketing. She's in Oak Park, Michigan. So she's there with her wife, Maxine, and they've been together over 25 years. I can't say exactly how long, but so yes, that's my one and only sister. The joke would go, that's my favorite sister, right? It's
and well, great. I am glad that that your sibling is here, and that you guys are in touch. That's
here great. And thriving, absolutely. So I'm glad that you're glad about that.
Okay. Now we are transitioning away from the family portion, and Tim's.
That's cool, because we didn't get a chance to talk about my dogs and my pets. No, go ahead.
No.
Go ahead.
All right.
No, continue, please.
So
I'm getting with you.
In the early parts of your career, you did a lot of theater work in Detroit. We don't have any color photos to share, but we have some photos taken from newspapers. And this actually,
well, this picture here, you would be fast forwarding to Chicago.
Okay.
This play right here was done at the Victory Gardens Theater when it was over at the old greenhouse on Lincoln Avenue. Rick Worthy is the other actor's name. And the play was called Eden, and it was written by Steve Carter. directed by Chuck Smith. So this was like my third play coming into Chicago. Yeah, that one right there was Free Fall. That was the second one. That was with Malcolm Jamal Warner. That was also at Victory Gardens. But my first play in Chicago was Putting It Pete. I did that at the Goodman. That was my first play. I came out of Detroit happy.
So, Eden, this is set in the 1920s. It's the first of Carter's Caribbean trilogy, and Eden explores the intra-racial conflicts between recent immigrants from the Caribbean and the African-American population. And the story centers around a recent Caribbean immigrant who discovers that his daughter has fallen in love with an uneducated African-American.
That would be Rick Worthy, yeah. That would be his character. I was the dad. I was the father.
And it takes place, the play is set in the 1920s in the San Juan Hills section of New York City. So I think you told me before you've worked with Steve Carter frequently.
No, not Steve Carter. I worked with Chuck Smith frequently. Director Chuck Smith. He's an artistic associate at the Goodman Theatre, has been so for a very long time.
Okay.
He's like the there's this couple of cats that we talk about being the godfathers of theater, and Chuck Smith is certainly one of them. I owe a great deal. Yeah, but I worked with Chuck Smith a lot. Not so much Steve Carter, the playwright. That was the only play I've ever done by him. Yeah.
Okay, great. Now, so then the second show that you were at the Victory Gardens, this is by Charles Smith.
Right.
This is Malcolm Jamal, and it's called, it's a scene from Firefall, and hang on.
It was called, go back, it's Free Fall. Not Firefall. That's all right. It's okay. It's Free Fall by Charles Smith. Yeah, that was my second play.
So here, let me just give a synopsis. The story of two brothers. One is a thief and the other is a policeman. And it's a dramatic.
About a picture of which one is which, right? So Malcolm Jamal Warner was the thief brother. I was the older brother who was a police officer. Go ahead, continue.
A dramatic portrayal of what family means in a society that has splintered the traditional institution. Though the brothers express mutual disdain, they can't resist seeking each other out. Their forays into each other's turf result in increasingly hostile confrontations that culminate in tragedy. Which,
kind of a familiar story, yes? Cain and Abel, right?
Yes.
So it's, there's you can go deep into history about the brothers who have had this kind of conflict. Yeah.
Does your character end up shooting the other character?
Oh, that, he does not. But yeah, well, there's the attempt of there's a whole lot that goes on in terms of the family dynamic here, and there are certainly threats of violence that were sewn into the script. It's not a glorious happy ending, and so but the experience itself, this was the first chance that I had to work with Dennis Zacek, legendary artistic director of the Victory Gardens Theatre. People should know about that guy. If you don't, you should ask somebody. But he selected me to work in this play, and I also worked with another phenomenal actor who's still in the Chicago area, working a lot with the Court Theater, specifically Goodman. A.C. Smith was also a part of this cast. Leslie Howard was also a part of this cast as well. You don't see them in the picture. But I had not been in Chicago a year when this opportunity came about. And the way that it happened is that I was doing the show that I mentioned before or maybe I didn't. Puddin' and Pete was the name of the first show I did at the Goodman Theater. That included actors such as Ernest Perry and Sherilyn Bruce, Jonelle Kennedy. The playwright Charles Smith, he and his wife came to see the production. This was being done in the studio at the Goodman Theater when they were located on Columbus before they moved over on Dearborn. And in that play, I was playing multiple characters. They have sort of like, an ensemble of 3 or 4 of us, I forget. They were doing multiple characters. After the show, Charles Smith, the playwright who wrote Free Fall, he and his wife were waiting in the lobby, and they were, everybody was greeting everyone and saying, hey, you did a great job, wonderful play. By the way, I wrote this play that's going to be produced at Victory Gardens, and we are still in the midst of trying to cast this very specific character, the character that you see I'm portraying there. Would you be interested in doing something like that? Absolutely. So he gave my name to Dennis Zacek, the artistic director. Dennis Zacek called me up, faxed me over some sides, the sides that we auditioned with, to come and to read at Victory Gardens with A.C. Smith and Charles Smith, and then of course Dennis Zacek. And that's how that happened, to get into Free Fall. Yeah, it was kind of a cool story. So anyway, they cast me in the show. We had a great time. Hanging out with Malcolm Jamal Warner was like, you can imagine, he's a huge celebrity. I had never been exposed to that kind of celebrity before, right? So when we would even go out to go have like lunch or whatever it was, I would see a lot of people just basically coming at him for autographs and those kind of things. Yeah, good time.
Okay, great. So here, this is a still from
Marco Ramirez, The Royale.
Yes.
Yeah,
I was going to say.
It's okay. I think we're having dialogue here. It's The Royale at the City Theater. I'm not the one with the shirt off. I'm the one with the hat, obviously. But Deshaun Terry and Andrew Smith were in this photograph.
And there's
but go ahead. You want to do the synopsis of it? Yeah, get to the synopsis.
The synopsis is on the side, and basically it's you play the manager of a boxer, an African-American boxer. It's in 1905, Jim Crow laws are in full force, and the boxer's character wants to be the heavyweight world champion. And currently that position is held by a white boxer. And there's an opportunity is created where you, the boxer, the one you manage, can fight this retired heavyweight champion.
This white heavyweight champion, right?
But the sister, the boxer's sister, his older sister, with whom he is very close, and they look out for each other, but there's probably some artistic tension there, and she cautions his character about what could happen to them and other African Americans if he should win. And that's what I read. I did not read anything about what the outcome is.
Right, we wouldn't want to destroy that for people who may have an opportunity to see the play somewhere else produced. But we can say that Mark Ramirez did an excellent job with this this production and writing and penning it and things. I think the main part of this, first of all, it was sort of an homage to Jack Johnson. Okay, the Negro heavyweight fighter. And I use the word Negro because that's what this story, you can see even in the writing here. I understand the political correctness of it all. But at that time, this is what and how Black people were referred to. And so his journey to becoming, wanting desperately to be the heavyweight champion of the world was, as you said from your reading, fraught with the consequences of that, right? And that, as was Jack Johnson's persona, this character, based on Jack Johnson, lived a very opulent life. He was very gregarious, dated white women, right? And that was not something that most white and Black Americans could tolerate at that time. And so the tensions were tight on both sides of the track. His sister, as you mentioned, who happened to be played by, now here's something for you, Wendi, you may get it and dig it. I think my audience will, is that's where I met my fiance, Bria Walker, was in this production, and this is where we met during the Royale. And she played his sister. And the energy of her coming and being inserted in this play, which is about 2/3 of the way through the play. She wasn't even introduced until about 2/3 of the way in.
Right, because there aren't a lot of characters in the play.
Well, there's not a lot. I mean, when you say a lot, I mean, that's all relative, right? But no, it's not a two-hander, but it's not like an ensemble of 15 or 20. But there were certainly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? We had 2 ensemble members and 2 other people who were involved.
The sister is the primary female character.
Yes, she was the only female character. And so you weren't going to miss that. But I think that the takeaway for me is, in terms of the experience of this play, was one, the play was phenomenally written. It was very challenging. The rhythm of which you had to speak. Scenes were designated as rounds. Round 1, instead of scene 1, scene 2, they were round 1, round 2, round 3, round 4, round 5, round 6. And of course, everyone's anticipating what you were talking about, which is the final round, the 6th round. What's going to happen, right? If he loses his, because he feels that he is athletically superior to this Bixby, the white guy, the white former heavyweight champion, or the heavyweight champion retired. So he knew he was a better boxer, a better fighter, but there was the dilemma of, like, if I beat him, this may create lynchings and riots and all of this. If he wins, if he loses, he would lose his dignity and lose himself. And so that's what the audience is waiting for, that part of the story that builds up so successfully, and just a phenomenal cast. I've been fortunate in theater to just work with some phenomenal people, Deshaun Terry, Andrew Smith, and Bria Walker, who's going to be Bria Walker Roseborough come September 10th. I got it in there, baby. So, yeah.
So,
the Royale.
The last name that everything I've seen that you use is Rhoze, but are you
am I what?
Are you adopting or using?
My professional name has been Tim Rhoze since the second play I did in Detroit, which was at the Harmony Park Playhouse. Rhoze, Rhoze, was something we did in high school. Like, my friends and I, particularly my friend Brent, was just playing around with everyone's names. Just playing around. I was never called Rose, but they would always call me Rose for short. If not T or Tim, it was Rose. Hey, Rose. And he came up with this spelling of Rhoze. And it just kind of stuck. It wasn't really intended as a thing for the performing arts or anything like that. It just happened to be something that stuck with me. But Roseboro was my family name, my father's name.
Roseboro.
Roseborough.
Okay. All right, great. Good to
Yeah.
know.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so here is a scene from
Airline Highway.
Airline Highway. This is Caroline Neff as Krista, and Tim is playing Terry. Photo credit is Joan Marcus, and it's written.
And the playwright.
Is written by Lisa D'Amour. It's set in
There
New
we go.
Orleans.
Now we're good. There you go.
Commissioned by Steppenwolf Theater Company, and it made its debut in Broadway in 2015, directed by Joe Mantello. Airline Highway takes place in the parking lot of the Hummingbird Motel of the titular highway of New Orleans, where the residents are gathered to celebrate the life of Miss Ruby, an iconic burlesque queen who has been a mother figure to them all. Miss Ruby's life is nearing its end, and she requests that her funeral take place while she is still alive, which is the setting for the play.
Correct. And all of the characters are the kind of community that you would see in that area of Louisiana, outside of New Orleans. And so they range.
It sounds very similar to sort of the premise of Pose, the TV.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe loosely, and maybe Pose, so saw that, but Lisa was very, very specific. The set was phenomenal, right? It was actually like the Hummingbird Motel. We had the sign, and it was a 2-level motel, and it was cruddy and run down. A broken down car that was on the stage with us and everything. But I think the real fascinating thing about the story were the individual characters who have all had their own lives and struggles, right? Whether it would have been through drug addiction or alcoholism or a disease of some sort, or they're yearning for more education and not able to get it, yearning for love, and that being a dream deferred. So she wrote a really, I think, phenomenal piece to illustrate that community of people that live in that kind of an environment.
What is on the character's face, the female character's face? Is that
a tattoo? It's a temporary tattoo.
Okay.
Because of a party that we're having, yeah, but it's a tattoo. Yeah.
So that was an important dramatic role.
It was, it was, but I mean, beyond that, Wendi, I think that we would be remiss, or I would be remiss, not you, if I didn't say that, having the opportunity to work at Steppenwolf and take a show from there to Broadway is sort of a milestone in a performer's career, right? And I know that in the beginning that you talked about, talking about what shaped me as a theater artist, right? And these steps along the way. And I mentioned a couple of them before. One was Puddin' and Pete at the Goodman Theater, being my first Chicago job. The second one being the Free Fall. But this is more than just a footnote in my life to be able to have the opportunity to work with Joe Mantello. For those of you who don't know who Joe Mantello is, if you've ever heard of the musical Wicked, he is the original director, one of the architects of that musical. And so, being fortunate enough to be selected to not only do this show at Steppenwolf on Halsted, but go to the Manhattan Theater Club at Friedman Theater on Broadway. It's pretty sensational. And like I said, more than just, oh, that happened. No, it happened. And it also began to shape me in terms of of really getting and being appreciative of what I've been allowed to do for the better part of my adult life. I've been doing this, Wendi, as a performer. I got started late. I did my first professional job when I was like 25, 26, something like that, at the Detroit Repertory Theater. I was at Harmony Park Playhouse. I'm sorry. But when I moved to Chicago, I can tell you honestly that I have been able to do what I've been doing since the early 90s and continuing to this day. This is such an important moment in my life. And I just want to highlight that. And all the people that were involved. This is Carolyn Niff. She's a Steppenwolf member now. She wasn't at the time, but she's one of the Steppenwolf company members now. Sensational performer. You know, so yeah, not just I can't brush this particular part of my life away. But go ahead. You want to say? You want to ask?
No, I moved to Broadway as immense professional recognition, and
yeah, it really is. It's not something that you just I mean, it just is, right? It is. It's like, wow, you know. And I can even, like, you know, if you were to ask me before that moment, did I have a goal, a dream of ever being on Broadway? I think there was a time when I was, you know, about that, but it was certainly unexpected. And then when it happened, and then, you know, to be on Broadway, to be there, to see posters. I was part of the poster. They were doing the ads, and, you know, they would have those on the public transportation and the subways, in the subway stations. And I would walk by. I actually took a picture of myself standing in the subway station next to the poster that had my picture on it. Like, check me out. You know, so I had a good time. I actually put on some pounds there. I was eating a lot of pizza, a lot of the street pizza. So I think the first couple of weeks I added about 10 pounds, but I got it off. I did. But yeah, that just, you know, that whole experience was just something that stays right here with me. So
sure, and yeah. You know, working with a director that's you know, a different caliber.
On another level, like, just, you know, there's like, and when we were all like, you know, and I don't want to say, you know, and I'm certainly not suggesting that like working for Chuck Smith was here and working for Joe Mantello was there.
No, of course
I
not.
had the opportunity to work with both these sensational, like Kimberly Senior, who directed The Whipping Man, right? That we're gonna get to. Like, to have the opportunity to work with these brilliant artists.
You worked with Harry Lennox.
I have worked with Harry Lennox and Felicia Fields. The list is endless of the number of people that have gone on to do and continue to do just phenomenal work in whatever arena of theater, television, or film that they are focusing on.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for sharing your experiences. Did you, when you were in New York, did you experience Malcolm Jamal level recognition?
Absolutely not.
I would imagine that it's that kind of recognition is fun up to a certain point, and then it's probably.
Yeah, he would share that. I remember one time Malcolm Jamal, we had gone out after the show. We had, you know, partied a little bit, the cast, and then we went out to eat at some diner, late night diner. And the food is in front of us, and we're eating, and someone came up to him and asked him if they could get an autograph. And he politely said, no, but I'm eating. And believe it or not, that person had the audacity to snap at him and to start saying that he was a big-headed, you know, overrated, you know, with the list of things because he refused to. So you're right. I think you have to be careful about what you ask for. You know, it's like success does not have to always include sort of like this outward fame. But no, I tell you what was kind of cool though, Wendi, is that after the show, and I had never experienced this, after the show, there's the stage door that comes out onto whatever street that was. I think it was 43rd Street, maybe 44th. And there were throws of people. There were just people around waiting to get your autograph because they saw you in the show. And they did that for everybody that came through the door that they saw in the show. So I was no better, better than anyone else. And so that was new. And so it felt kind of cool, it felt good. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there's an energy in New York that is unlike most other places.
Anything else? They had me housed at an apartment on 47th between 7th and 8th, and which is like right in Broadway and right in Times Square. And I think that city in that area may have been quiet from the hours of 3 to 5 a.m. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I think that area is probably Hell's Kitchen.
I don't know if that's Hell's Kitchen. It's like right there. But there was and I can't think of the name of the fire station, but the fire station that was has been highlighted, marqueed a lot about the 911. The number of firefighters that were lost from that particular station was right there on the corner across from where I was living.
It's right here.
Yeah. And it was, my memory of that is that they would have the doors open to the firehouse and the trucks that were parked in, and they would just be, kind of leaning against the trucks, and people would come by and take their picture with the firefighters. That I do remember. Here she is.
Okay. So here, moving on, you have done a lot of work in television, these are just two still photos, not the best quality because I enlarged them. They were too small to really see clearly. Malcolm and Eddie, 1998, Grey's Anatomy, 2006, lots of other shows, including.
That's Natalie Cole, right? That's Patrick Dempsey and Natalie Cole. I played Natalie Cole's husband. I just want you to take a deep breath and figure that out for a second, right? I'm Tim Rhoze from Detroit, Michigan, just kind of making a living, carving it out. And I get cast in Grey's Anatomy as Natalie Cole's husband. Great memories about that, right? It's like we would do lunch, sit down and have lunch together. And I would say to her, your dad was Nat King Cole, right? And she would laugh. She'd say, yeah, I know. And she would actually go into just a little bit of her, and I won't share all those things that were very personal, but she would talk about, her growing up as the daughter of Nat King Cole. And it was absolutely amazing. And for those who kind of remember seeing her. She has passed away. She's no longer with us. It was a sad day. But those who remember her from her videos and her music, phenomenal singer, was as generous a person as she appeared and sounded like in her music. Just a genuine. I don't remember about Patrick Dempsey. I guess he was all right.
Okay, so now we're moving into plays that you have written and directed, and there are 3 that we're going to that I have some photographs of. This is called Why Not Me? It's a Sammy Davis Jr. story. Sean Blake, the triple threat who could act, sing, and dance, played Sammy Davis Jr.
Correct.
Directed by you in 2015. And let me just read something hang on one second. So you were interviewed by a publication, and this is from that interview. I chose to focus on a period of time in the late 50s when he was dealing with the horrific car accident that took his eye, the circumstances that led up to the accident, and the incredible aftermath. So tell me about this. And did Sammy Davis Jr. ever see the show?
Did he see this show?
Or had he passed away by then?
Oh, yeah. He had passed away long before this was produced.
Never mind.
No, he may have seen it, with his one good eye from above, but no, he was not around at the time.
So were you pleased with this experience?
Oh, more than pleased, more than pleased. This is one again, this is one of those moments, in an artist's life that sends you into another trajectory, right? So working with Sean Blake, who is literally, a triple threat, phenomenal actor, sings, dance, wonderful human being on most days. And but writing for him, I wrote with him in mind, Sean Blake. And so we workshopped it for many months. He was putting in blood equity, just like I was putting in blood equity on this project. And as it turned out, I think that we turned out a wonderful representation of a moment in Sammy Davis Jr.'s life where he's able to sort of revisit his youth, his coming up, all the pit stops along the way, his relationships, his marriages, his family, his success, his failures, his shortcomings. We were able to, I think, encapsulate that in a very entertaining way. And it could not have been done without the true efforts of Sean Blake, who totally embodied Sammy Davis and yet made it his own. Right. So it was pretty incredible.
Here is a scene from another play that you wrote and directed. This is Maya's Last Poem with Jacqueline Williams and Cheryl Lynn Bruce, written and directed by Tim Rhoze. This play takes a leap and asks the question, now that Maya Angelou is in heaven, what conversations is she having with God? As she seeks to write again from God's library, how will this glorious, entertaining conversation influence the words she chooses? I love that concept.
I wish you had an opportunity to see it, right? It was shortly after Maya Angelou passed away, actually, that I began to imagine the magical what if. It's one of the tools that guides me through theater. What if, when she went to heaven, she landed in God's library with any and everything that had ever been written is in God's library. As far as the eye can see, the universe is filled with the books in God's library. God, Cheryl Lynn Bruce, short hair, gray, gracious, elegant, Cheryl Lynn Bruce, one of the godmothers of theater. She's playing God. Jacqueline Williams, who is my daughter's mother, is playing Maya. They're in heaven having conversation. And Maya was, had mentioned in an article when she was interviewed that when growing up, she was living with her paternal grandmother. She thought that her grandmother was God. And so it was an easy leap for me after reading that to envision her up in heaven with a Black female who was God, and why not?
It's very
and why not? And
why
not?
And
that journey of this, you was right. She wanted to write. When she passed away in real life, it was said that she was working on a novel when she passed away. I re-envisioned that and thought, what if she was working on a poem when she passed away? And so the journey of this play is that through her conversations with God, she constructs the stanzas of this poem. And this poem is then recited at the end of the play.
Fantastic. any plans to bring it back to Fleetwood-Jourdain to introduce it to audiences who've not yet
I've
seen
seen it. I don't. There's no immediate plans. Let me put it that way. It's always, everything like this is always, a possibility. We have some interest from other theaters, not in Chicago, but yeah, I'd love to revisit this play again. I've worked on it a little bit more since then as well.
Great. Okay, and then another play that you write? You wrote Black Ballerina.
Nutcrackerish. That's my daughter. I can't think of the young lady's name. I really can't. But my daughter,
In the center?
the tall one. Yeah, the one in the pink. Well, they're both wearing pink. The one with the scarf on, tall one, taller one. Nutcrackerish is a concept that her and I came up with as a holiday offering for families and children of all ages, right? I'm doing a publicity thing right here, right? And it's a combination, it's marrying the Nutcracker and the Wizard of Oz.
Cool.
So we infuse those two things for an evening of entertainment as a Dorothy, and which Kara played, and then in Toto, which the other young ballerina played. Were thrust into this other world after, a big storm, a la Wizard of Oz, and then the elements of the Nutcracker came in with Tchaikovsky and the choreography and things. So it was infusing with ballet, jazz, contemporary dancing, and hip hop dancing. And we did that in the Piven Theater workshop.
Is this a holiday tradition that is reprised every year?
Well, we did for several years, and then pandemic hit, right? And so, will we pick this back up? We will. I don't know if it'll be for 2022, but for certain, we've been talking with Actors Gymnasium and hoping that we can do a partnership collaboration and bring in almost kind of like a circus acts. Into the fray. Yeah, as the townspeople, those sort of things. The lollipop kids, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay, so now this is your daughter again, and here is Kara on point, and then Kara in Black Ballerina, which is the show that you wrote and directed. So can you talk about that?
I co-wrote it. Yeah, I co-wrote that with my dear friend Stephen Fido. He and I wrote that. This is our second collaboration. We also did the play A Home on the Lake. A lot of people would remember that we did in collaboration partnership with Piven Theater Workshop. But Black Ballerina was inspired by my daughter, began to write about it, and it eventually sort of evolved into this story of three Black ballerinas: the grandmother from the 1950s, her daughter in the 70s and the 80s, and then the grandmother's granddaughter, the mother's daughter, who is a present day Black ballerina, and really examining and exploring how this beautiful art form is stained with the prejudice and racism that is ever present within the walls of the ballet companies. Right. And how a Black ballerina, no, not great, terrible, to think that a beautiful young lady like my daughter would have to put on white makeup to blend into the core if she were going to work in a ballet company. So no, not great.
Wait, when did that
no, this has happened over the course of history. So not just one person has been told to do that. It is documented right throughout
I was not aware.
Over time, right? That Black ballerinas have had to suffer the indignities of racism and prejudice, and it goes on to this day. So Black Ballerina, the story.
Wait, are you saying that there are companies, ballet companies, that still require that?
There have been, most recently it was in Germany, maybe about a year or two ago. a young Black ballerina was asked to lighten up her skin tone. So the story that we were telling in Black Ballerina, which is a lot of obviously fantastic dancing, as you can see here, but it was also fraught with what a Black ballerina has to go through to just be in the core, the ensemble, let alone being Misty Copeland, being a principal of ABT, right? Far and few in between, not enough. The numbers aren't there. And then you can imagine being a Black ballerina who fell in love with an art form that rejects you. So this is what Black Ballerina explored. I think we came out on the other side of the play at the end, knowing that this Black ballerina did not succumb to the pressures of losing her soul, losing herself.
What was the feedback, the public feedback, when this was presented?
It was phenomenal. We had lines outside the door, but after the play was over, it was an immediate standing ovation. And people sometimes were in tears because they had just witnessed something that most of them had never witnessed before, and that included the story as well as the brilliant talent of the actors and dancers, specifically my daughter, and how she is just the real thing. She just came back from Amsterdam choreographing something over there for the National Ballet Company over there.
Is she a choreographer?
She's a choreographer, she's a dancer, she's a writer, she's an administrator for Books and Breakfast. She's a lot of things at her young age.
Great.
She's got minty jobs, man.
Okay, this is a scene from the
Crowns, the musical, the gospel musical Crowns by Regina Taylor.
Yes, adapted from the book by Michael Cunningham and Greg Mayberry. Crown is the story of a Chicago teenager who is sent to live with her grandmother in South Carolina, finds connection among a community of resilient African-American women in their church house.
Yep. And what a phenomenal experience for everybody. Everybody just took tremendous joy in experiencing the person you see in front of you. I won't go through the entire cast, I probably couldn't. But Kiana McNary, at the time, Kiana McNary, she's married now and has a different last name. But it's infused with gospel music, obviously, and but the title tells everyone exactly what this is about. It's about the meaning of the haberdashery, the hats, the crowns that Black women wear, and the significance of them. There are certain hats, crowns they would wear for a baptism or a wedding or a funeral, And as you mentioned, the young girl that was sent there by her relatives, sitting in the middle, right beside, underneath Kiana, begins to experience through these women of different generations the importance of her being and why she can always do better.
Right.
And and Regina Taylor did, she's just, well, everybody who knows Regina Taylor knows that is just like one of those comets that, man, it comes and it's just.
Yeah, it looks like it was a lot of fun to watch and produce and participate in.
Yeah, and as you can see, there are well, that's okay, but there were murals behind them. Those two paintings, left and right, excuse me, are of members of the Evanston community, right? It's really hard for me to see, but certainly I see Ms. Joanne Kromash sitting up there, and Ms. Hickman and things. But those women in those paintings are from the Evanston community, and they're on stage the entire time. Love it. Yeah.
You've also done a lot of work with children's theater, teaching workshops. This is from Dreadlocks and the Three Bears, which
We did at the Ecology Center. So on Saturdays, we would present these sort of short playlets for kids that were adapted from the stories that we knew growing up, and flipping it on its side a little bit, Dreadlocks and the Three Bears, right? And as you can see, the kids would come and we would serve up lemonade and popcorn, and you can see they were just all in. So we would do that not only at the Ecology Center, but we would also do that at the farmers market.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, and you've been involved with a lot of public ceremonies and presentations. This is from a Martin Luther King Jr. celebration in 2020, the month before the pandemic started, because or 2 months before the pandemic
Absolutely
went into place. But there are countless of these types of programs that you've been involved with.
Yeah, this is one of them. This is the MLK at the newly renovated Fleetwood-Jourdain Community Center, which is at a different location than the theater. So I don't want people getting those two like, oh, they're in the same place. They're not. But we do hold some of our annual events at the community center, as we would do with Kwanzaa. We would do Women's History Month there. But we've also expanded utilizing the Levy Center for the last time we did our Women's History Month champagne bruncheon was with Ambassador Carol Mosley Braun as our guest speaker, and Cheryl Judice, who is Hecky Powell's widow. We did it at the Levy.
Author and professor in her own right. She's
absolutely, just like insane.
So let me, there are two other things I want to try and share. I don't know if this is going to work, but
give it a shot.
You had one of the leads in a Lifetime story that was on television, written and directed by Rosemary O'Donnell. So this is a short little interview. You see this?
I'm Dr. Maureen Brennan. You can call me.
No, we do not. We can hear it, but we can't see it.
Here at Ridgeway. When I read the book,
You cannot see it.
Cannot see that clip. Oh.
Okay. That won't work then. Okay, here, this, you've done a lot of voiceover work.
I have.
All right. Here's a clip from your Wastelanders. Hang on, I've queued it up.
So Wastelanders is a Marvel Entertainment offering, and I've been fortunate enough to be the voice or the narrator for that, as well as for Wolverine and Wastelanders. And I got that job because remember I told you about Kimberly Senior, who's the director of The Whipping Man. She recommended me for that. I hadn't heard from Kimberly in several years, and she called me up. She said, look, I'm directing this thing with Marvel Entertainment, and they're seeking a voice for the narrator, and you popped into my mind. Can you send a little MP3 file to them of you doing this, whatever.
Hang on.
And from that, my relationship with Marvel Entertainment was born.
Okay, this I've enhanced it so that it's your voice. So Here we go.
All right.
Marvel Entertainment and SiriusXM present Marvel's Wastelanders, Old Man Star-Lord. Starring Timothy Busfield as Star-Lord, Chris Elliott as Rocket, Patrick Page as Kraven the Hunter, Dylan Baker as Doom, with performances by Vanessa Williams, Asif Manvi, and Danny Glover. Explore an apocalyptic alternate future of the Marvel Universe in Marvel's Wastelanders, Old Man Star-Lord. The The first series in the thrilling new multi-part audio epic premieres Tuesday, June 1st on the SiriusXM app and desktop player, plus everywhere you listen to your favorite podcasts. Learn more at SiriusXM.com/Wastelanders.
Very cool. Very cool. That always makes me laugh.
The clip that, the part that preceded it
Right.
is an animatic.
Mhm.
It's an animated show with
Yeah.
voices that are easily recognizable of well-known names.
Mhm. Mhm.
but-
Angela Bassett, Danny Glover.
But it was
Yeah.
kind of violent and just, I didn't want to
You
focus
didn't
on
have to show it. It's Marvel.
Right. I have these other clips, but they're not, if you can't see it, there's no point in.
Yeah, that's okay. No, that's all right.
But there was, your work spans, I know that drama, acting on the stage and directing is your preferred sweet spot, but you've also done a lot of work in television.
I've had a career.
You are still in your career.
I have still,
So-
but I certainly have been one of the fortunate ones to have landed and found purpose in what.
Absolutely. And Evanston is fortunate that you're here, and I am going to show you one more slide. This is the happy slide to end with. This is the late Mrs. Morton.
And I knew you were going to show that, so I wore this hat. That hat is this hat.
This to me just is jubilant, and I love this. So we have
I was one of her.
questions.
I was one of her many Evanston children. One of her many, but she embraced me with every ounce of love that you can think could happen. She was my other mother. We claimed that. We talked about it. And you can open up for questions now, but you can see Miss Morton and I, she had season tickets to the Marriott Lincolnshire, to see the musicals. We would do lunch together and go do theater. She's like, let's go see whatever the show is. Well, let's go see Oklahoma, whatever it was, right? Let's go see. And we would have these matinee theater dates. And then, of course, she would invite me over to her house and sit, and she would prepare lunch for me, usually ham sandwiches with a little bit of cheese and mayonnaise on some white bread.
Well, very fortunate. Okay, so questions and comments. Enid says, I loved hearing about your family life, so interesting. Somebody asked, have you done TV? Yes. You can look on IMDb and get some of.
Yeah, like you said, when we had that conversation, you can look on IMDb and you won't really get a whole lot. You probably would just get more, I think, of the background from this here.
Right.
I'm not really into putting a bunch of stuff on the internet and social media, so you won't be able to find a lot of what I do. But thank you for that plug. Appreciate
And
it.
if you look up Lifetime shows, the show America by Rosie O'Donnell, she wrote it, she acted in it. I think she directed it, right?
No, she did not direct it.
She did not.
No, there was some other person that directed it, but no, she was an executive producer and a lead actor in it. Yeah.
It's the story of it's about the foster care system and how kids are
vulnerable. The kids are vulnerable in the foster care system, and when they're not looked after properly, bad things can happen to them. And so there was a character in this movie, a young boy who had been groomed by an older male, and because he was in that foster care system, people did not pay close enough attention before he was harmed. I happened to play the antagonist, the evil person in that movie, but Rosie was really trying to spotlight how these cracks aren't so narrow, they're very wide, and too many of the children are falling through them.
So that's available online that you can watch.
If you choose to, sure.
Okay. Jennifer has a question. Will you spend a few minutes talking about your approach to the Fleetwood-Jourdain Theatre productions? How do you select or write the plays and topics? How do you engage young people?
So that's a multiple question, right? So, you know, my process of selecting plays is that, you know, I have in my own head, and I have the books and everything, and to read the canon of shows that I've been in, but also recommendations from other artists. And so it is a read fest, and then something will eventually hit me in the right spot, and I can envision it being on our 150-seat theater stage. That is part of the process of selecting a play, and thus the season. In terms of the work with the young people, we have a program called Y-STEP, YSTEP. It's the acronym for the Youth and Senior Theater Ensemble Project, of which many of the primetime players, Older Adult Drama Club, I'm going to do a shout out to my family there, as well as to the North Shore Network family, have participated in this intergenerational program where young people, mostly teenagers between the age of 13 and 18, and older adults, generally over the age of 65, get together and we devise a play. And they go through the process of writing a short story play. So that's part of the mission of our theater, and my personal mission of involving young people. We even go step down in age to doing the Tater Tot Theater Company. Those are the 5, 6, and 7-year-olds. Phenomenal future Oscar winners, indeed. So yeah, we span
what's
a
on the
great deal of
schedule?
time.
What's on the schedule coming up for fall?
We're doing the production of Sam R. Williams' Home that will open up on June 4th at our theater at the Noise Cultural Arts Center. That will run until the end of June. That will be followed up by The Monologues. And that's a play about 3 Black women who are single parents for various reasons, who engage with the audience in a retreat about what it's like to be Black women of means. They're upwardly mobile, and yet they still fall into these compartmentalized areas of prejudice and racism and sexism. Then we are going to do in the fall, American Son. That will be produced there. And then we'll come back and do Kwanzaa again. We'll have our lighting out at Fountain Square on the 26th, and then we'll do our Kwanzaa celebration. Will be at the Robert Crown Community Center on the 26th as well. Juneteenth is coming up too, Wendi, right? So that's going to be, Juneteenth is actually on the 19th of June, but the commemoration will be on the 18th of June from 11 to 5 at Ingram Park. Ingram Park, for everyone who doesn't know, is the park behind the Lorraine H. Morton Civic Center. That's what's happened. That's what's coming up.
All right.
And people can go to fjtheater.com, fjtheater, theatre.com, and they can get more information. They can certainly buy tickets.
.com or .org?
No, the theater's website is .com.
Okay.
Okay.
So Linda, who seems to be your biggest fan, says, "Are you coming back to the Piven Theater? I miss you and your plays." She also wants to see Black Ballerina. She said, "I sit in the first row of all the time for your performances," and she loved Crown. So
thank you, Linda. Yes, Jen Green, who is the executive artistic director of Piven Theater, and I have had conversations about moving forward with future collaborations for the stage. So stay tuned.
Okay. Cynthia asks, how did you get into acting?
My father got me into acting, actually.
To keep you out of trouble, right?
Yeah. You know, I mean, you know, do a whole lot of that stuff, right? Juvie home and what have you. But the point is that my father, who, like I told you before, was a part-time actor at the Detroit Repertory Theater. They had a Saturday morning acting workshop. And I was the youngest one there. Most of them were 18 and older, but they allowed me to come in at the age of, like, I don't know, 15. And so that was my introduction to it as a performer. Prior to that, I had been introduced to theater because my father had been doing theater. He had, you know, the one specific play that you and I had talked before, Ceremonies and Dark Old Men, is the somebody on the sideline in life to actually knowing that I could actually participate in life. And it was because I was able to just engage in plays. And so from that and moving forward and stepping forward and big steps forward, I started doing other workshops and working with improvisational groups and eventually doing plays in Detroit, quite a few of them actually. And then driving back and forth to Chicago, from Detroit to Chicago and Chicago back to Detroit to audition, and he eventually landed the part in Puddin' and Pete at the Goodman Theater, which began my career here in Chicago. So it began early. I didn't think of really doing theater as a profession until my mid-20s. I didn't, you know, I was doing something else other than that, you know.
Okay. Somebody named Jamie wants to know, when are you and I going to work together again?
Hey, Jamie, you
And
give me
Robert
a
asks,
give me a call and let me know what you have in mind. We should talk.
Robert asks, are you still collaborating with the District 202 ETS Theater Department to bring more Black works of art
Yes.
to their stage? Yes.
Absolutely, absolutely. We did Blood at the Root this past year, and so we are going to do, I think, some future collaborations. You know, future. You know, bringing in. We started a Black student theater club there called Fire, and the whole point of that theater club is to make sure that those who are interested in theater and theater that you don't have to ask where are the Black characters, because they exist. To know that there is this huge canon of work for them to know about, and opportunities, not just in the performing end, but also on the designing end, and also
Absolutely.
in the administrative end, and the producing and the writing.
Claire asked, how did you come to Chicago? I know you're a proud Detroiter, but the story that you told me yesterday or over the weekend, I forget, when I landed
that play, that first play,
which brought you to Chicago.
Yeah, no. So you know,
Tell that story, because we're running close
out
to
of time. Back and forth. You know, just, you know, like you said, reiterating that I would drive from Detroit to Chicago to do audition and back and forth. And this one time I auditioned at the Goodman Theater for this play called Puddin' and Pete. It was a Saturday, and I drove in to do the audition, but I was actually doing a show back in Detroit. I was actually doing Fences at the Attic Theater, playing the Sun Lions. So I did the audition, I drove back. I got word that I had a call back for Sunday, but I had a matinee that Sunday. And so the casting director was like, well, you know, the callback is Sunday. And I said, well, I can jump on a plane. I'll do anything to get there. She said, unfortunately, the director will be leaving after 2:00. And so I was just destroyed. I thought I had an opportunity to work in the Goodman Theater. Fast forward, you know, that following Wednesday, I get a call from the Goodman Theater that offered me the job as a character, as an actor in Puddin' and Pete. And so I packed up my rusted Acura, and I had a dear friend, Sandy Litt, who had a 2-flat and an extra room, an extra bedroom. And she said that I was welcome to stay there as long as I wanted to. And that's what I did. I packed up the car and I came in and I did Puddin' and Pete. And then everything else that you heard about happened after that.
And that was based on the people at Goodman checked with people who had worked.
Yeah, you're so aware. Yeah, thank you. At first the casting director, Tara Alonso, wonderful human being, said, well, I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do for you. I just don't know your work. And so they checked in with Woody King, fellow Detroiter, who is probably the ultimate godfather of theater. He lives in, has his theater company in New York. They called him up, and I had worked with Woody on a couple of occasions, and he vouched for me. And through that, they gave me a shot. And I don't know how many, but I've done over a dozen plays at the Goodman Theater, and that was the beginning.
Great story. I know that your focus is on plays that focus on Black characters.
Well, it focuses on the Black experience, the African American experience,
Black,
and the legacy of the African diaspora. Correct.
And is it important for you in your work that the audiences who come to see your works be multiracial? Do you want people of all different ethnicities?
I want what our community looks like in my seats, right? And so that, there's a range in terms of age, there's a range in terms of culture, there's a range in terms of religion. Rabbi London is a dear friend of mine, one of my mentors. And so, Beth Emmett and the congregation from there often in our seats, right? There, folks from Second Baptist Church are coming in and sitting in those seats. So it is my mission to make our audience as eclectic as possible, and so they can all share in the experiences that we are presenting on the stage.
I saw the presentation you produced of Los Angeles, 1992.
Twilight, Los Angeles, 1992, by Anna Devere Smith. Yeah.
Blew me away. Just amazing.
Yeah, Jasma, she would hit me upside the head. Jasma Pryor took on 40 plus roles to tell this story of the documentary style theater that Anna Devere Smith had done. And so, yeah, I agree with you. I think that the entire production was phenomenal, but it's nothing without the talent of that young actor.
Right. So last question. What is the one thing on your bucket list related to theater that you would like to do, either as a performer, director, producer?
I'd love to see something that I have written to be presented on Broadway. I would, that would be something that I could check off and go like, yeah, we got Black Ballerina on Broadway, and it's been, supported by Felicia Rashad, and Misty Copeland was a part of this production, something like that, I'm much more about the writing and directing and even designing. I've been designing sets for several years as well. Acting is something that's still in me, but it's all those other things that drive me.
Are you working on something new?
I am working on a James Baldwin piece to be announced next year. Not necessarily about his life, not a chronological sort of stepping of his life, but a day in his life and what it was like to be James Baldwin on this day. So I'm working on that. Yeah.
Tim, thank you so much for spending part of your day with us. Thank you Levy Senior Center Foundation audience
Yeah.
for
Absolutely.
hanging in there in spite of less than perfect technology.
It was perfect, Wendi. It happened. It was perfect.
You have so much
good about it.
experience. I was tough to select what to focus on, and
You know, but you did a great job. No, you did a great job. You asked, and thank you for including my family. As you can tell, that means the world to me. All my love to the primetime players, all of them, all of the North Shore Village network. All my love to them, to my beautiful fiance, Bria, soon to be Walker Roseboro. And so, yeah, thank you for the opportunity. And I hope they were happy to see me.
it was just wonderful. Folks, in 2 weeks, we will be taking a safari to Rwanda. Virginia Mullen is a circumnavigator. She has traveled throughout the globe multiple times. She went on a photo safari to Africa and is going to take us through that experience. Not to be missed.
Not to be missed.
So thank you so much.
Thank you,
And
Mary G.
it was
Hey, baby.
wonderful. And have a good week, everyone. Take
Have
care.
a good weekend. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.